Every good solution has a pain. Tell me what the problem is that we're trying to solve here at Tessl, but also AIND and things like that is trying to solve.
If you're using agents to develop, then you've probably seen that agents are powerful, but they're also unreliable. You would ask them for something, that go off and they rush to start coding the first solution that comes to mind. And oftentimes that would be the wrong thing. For some people, they just can't get into agentic development because of this blocker. And so we think we can address many of these problems through specs and spec-driven development. And that's what both of our products are trying to solve.
What are the two products that we're releasing?
So two products, both very exciting. The first one is the Tessl framework, and that is really a spec-driven development framework that connects to your agent via MCP. So we support all the agents that support it, and guides it to capture its intent in specs before it builds. Right? So you come along and you give it an instruction, whatever, build me a to-do app or whatever it is. And before it jumps into code, it first creates a spec, thanks to using Tessl's tools and thanks to Tessl's guidance, to say what is it that it wants to build in a quick and easy to understand format, and then it goes off to build it. And have you had a case where you ran along or you gave an instruction and the agent rushed and they ended up building the wrong thing?
It's not just daily, maybe hourly when I use agents, and it's I guess a twofold thing. One where I either give it an instruction and it hasn't quite understood exactly what I meant, and it's because I love to short prompt because I get value and speed out of short prompting. The other, of course, is where I ask it for a small change in a larger app, and it actually then goes ahead and starts changing other pieces,
which expands it of the
it's frustrating.
So that's the sort of the first goal, is separate intent from implementation and capture what it means to build in a spec. Mm-hmm. And then once you are comfortable with the intent and with what has been built and you're happy with it, then Tessl offers you an easy way to now generate tests with sort of a single command. Mm-hmm. And this is done because the spec is actually designed upfront to be built with a lot of test cases in mind that serve as examples when you initially generate. But then those are sort of the key definitions to go off and create tests. And the agent needs to work a little bit harder to be able to generate those tests. It needs to set up a test environment, sometimes iterate, but it does it quite autonomously. And once it works, those serve as regression tests. Mm-hmm. And so now you know that it would not do, as you mentioned before, you make a change and then it goes off and it breaks something else.
Yeah.
So the second product, which I'm very excited about, is the Tessl Spec Registry. Going back a little bit to the pain point, I think what you see with agents is sometimes they don't know something and they don't know, or as I said,
the story of my life. I'm basically an agent.
They're kind of overconfident. I'm going to let that slide.
No. I feel seen now.
So the most evident version of that is when they use an API, a third-party API or an open source library API. If you're using something that is like straight up in the mainstream and they know, they're amazing at it. If you're using something that's a little bit off, or using a slightly older version of a popular library, or even more, if you're using a new version that didn't exist yet when those models were trained, typically what the agents would do is they would just make it up as they go. And they would use, false APIs or flawed one. And sometimes they would just really get stuck in that mode and they would just sort of waste time and money trying to get there and never get out of it. And sometimes they would eventually figure it out, but it was, time-consuming, costly, and they oftentimes are left with a slightly messy implementation. And have you experienced things like that?
So much. And it's particularly because, AI is great at when it looks at when it trains on a huge amount of open source libraries with tons of different versions on there. When things, and I'm talking about the Java world here, but when things progress over years and years and years and years, there are so many API changes from different libraries whereby the most popular is really the one it's going to be trained on. And I'm not always using the most popular because I sometimes run on an old stack, or I'm sometimes bleeding edge with some of the things I'm using. And it's not just as much a hallucination as it is I'm assuming this is the version you're running on without actually using the correct context to build against when generating my app. Huge problem.
Precisely. And so this is really a kind of a context problem, right? They don't have the right information at the right time. Sometimes because they literally do not have the info, like a brand new library version. Sometimes because sort of a less statistically significant bit of information. And sometimes it's indeed information that there's no way for them to have, like your team's specific best practices or context. And so what we believe and enable with the Spec Registry is to make that knowledge a part of your project. So we introduce a new dependency system that the Spec Registry enables, and that is a dependency system for knowledge, for specs. You would have a new manifest file in your project that references certain spec packages of specs with the right information to be able to work on this code base. More specifically for open source, we have pre-populated the registry with over 10,000 usage specs, which are we generated them by analyzing the code of specific versions of libraries and additional information about those libraries of usage online that is all version aware. And we package them up in these easy to consume kind of nuggets of knowledge for the agent. So these are markdown files with the right sections. They are split up into multiple files so the agent can load the right thing at the right time. And so let's say you're using some library at version old, then the agent will you will add that. You would use Tessl registry search to find the usage spec. It will be added to your manifest file, and those usage specs will be downloaded to your project, just like node modules or other dependencies. And then using Tessl tools and even natively, the agent can then find them and use the information correctly. And you know that this information is there. It is correct for your specific project. It is kind of always available to all the agents. You're not dependent on them realizing they need to go seek it out or misunderstanding it. And as your software stack changes or as your practices change, so does the information that you make available to the agents. So both products together are to us a part of what is spec-driven development. If you're keen to try them out, just check out Tessl.io and start playing with the tools.